missed that part. But hey, thank you all for joining us. It's nice to meet those of you that I've never met, albeit virtually. Once again, my name is John Wagithuku. I am on the board of directors and I work at VMG Resources. We're a property management staffing company. Excuse me. Um, and I have a background in property management as well on the other side. And what I wanted to share with you guys this morning, it's not very profound. You've probably heard it before, but it's about dealing with change, because what we have right now in front of us is a big change that we're obviously having a very big issue adapting to. And to that end, I remember back when I was a fast manager, scared out of my whatever, because I didn't know what I was doing. I had a property I was managing in Colombia. The company I worked for took us on a retreat and gave us a little book called Who Moved My Cheese? And I bet everybody here has heard about the book. And I remember the facilitator telling us that if we can adapt the message in that book, we're gonna use it for the rest of our lives. And he warned us that most of us read that book and just set it aside and imagine that, you've had what the situation is. And the issue with change is that change is personal, and it's a mindset that you have to adapt and go, hey, I'm not gonna chase this stuff that went away. I'm gonna chase this new stuff, and I'm gonna, sniff and scurry like two of the characters in that book instead of hemming and hawing. And I'm sure all of you guys have come across people during this time, maybe your colleagues or friends, who are still wanting it to go back to normal. And that normal was our cheese, which we cannot let go. We are just completely addicted to it, to the point that most of us have spent the whole pandemic season discussing how we can go back to normal instead of figuring out how we survive in this new situation, because we already know how to deal with normal. If we went back to normal, we're very experienced in normal. What is scaring us is we do not know how to deal with what we have in front of us. And if you look at the big companies, a lot of them have adapted and they've moved forward. People like Pinterest gave up their lease because from now on, they'll let people work from home. Those are adjustments that people are making instead of imagining that we are going to go back to how it used to be. To bring that to, our association and our companies, one of our lifelines, if you're an associate or if you're a property manager, is the interaction between us and our clients. And most of it is face to face. And when that was taken away, we do not know what to do with ourselves. And we are adapting. And what I think the book says is spend more time trying to adapt to the new as opposed to trying to figure out how to get back to the old. And that's it for me.
Wow. Thank you, John. That was so awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now is the time. Would anyone like to ask John any questions, or maybe extend the conversation a little bit further from what he just shared with us about change? You may be muted out, so just check your mics if you are trying to speak. Anyone?
John, do you have any recommendations for the people who are still looking for the same old cheese? Like, how do you impart this wisdom onto those stubborn folks who are just scurrying around looking for that normal cheese?
I think the message in the book is scurrying is the right thing to do, because the characters are two mice and two little people. And the mice they're in a maze, and the mice just run up a maze. And when they don't find cheese at one spot, they don't sit there and get angry, get frustrated. They just keep moving. They just keep moving until they find the cheese. And the idea is to stop moaning. And so that's why I said it's personal. You have got to get that mindset. And it's not easy, because we still want to go out with friends. We want to go to barbecues. We want to go to events. We want to do all these things. We want to go to the movies. Changing that mindset is what the book talks about, because all those things we're missing now are things that we just completely assumed were the cheese we are looking for in life, right? that getting together with people, going to work every day, doing this, all those things we were used to, that the pandemic has changed. We had let our lives revolve around them so much that we cannot detach. And that's why it's so difficult for us to just go, hey, I'm just going to figure out what to do if this pandemic stays here for the next 10 years, as opposed to saying, hey, open up, open up, open up.
Right.
So that, I think that's the message. It's just understand that it might be here to stay, and, you know, just change yourself first, because if you don't change yourself, even your organizations, they can't change. If the groups in those organizations don't change and get that same mindset, you're just going to be sitting there waiting for it to get back to normal, and it might never get back to normal.
Thank you, John. We really appreciate that. Is there any other questions for John before we move on to our next panelist?
John, I would like to ask just very quickly, if you had to point to one thing that was the most difficult for you to adapt to, just that one thing, what was your one thing that was difficult for you?
If it's in reference, excuse me, to the pandemic, it's the structure of waking up and going to work every day, because to a lot of us, that brings validation.
Yeah.
And so when you're getting up and even going to the basement doesn't feel right, because you kind of want to get into traffic. I don't know why, for what reason, but that routine that you're used to, that routine that you're so used to, it becomes very weird when you wake up and go downstairs and sit in front of a computer, and that's how you work. And that's, you know, it's also like shifting paradigms, right?
Yeah,
that's the toughest one I had to deal with. It's very hard to wake up, take a shower, and go sit downstairs in your suit.
Yeah. So something as small as that, you can put that into perspective using, you know, the book you just referenced. So thank you for that. It was great. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for John? Okay. Thank you so much, John. We appreciate you sharing. That was a powerful message.
My pleasure.
Up, we have Ala. Take it away.
Good morning, everyone. First, I want to say thank you so much for spending part of your morning with us. It's really great to see some familiar faces that I actually have not seen in a couple of years. So it's always great, Sharon. I see you nodding your head. I love to see your smiley face. I think it's very important to talk what John was talking about just earlier, because that was actually the subject that I also wanted to talk about. So it's kind of great that we're thinking alike in some things. But what I will do is, since John kind of touched on the base and the story, I have not read the book, so I'll definitely add that to my to read list. But something that I want to talk about is change can be difficult when we try to change. Sometimes we don't understand, sometimes we don't control. It just kind of happens, falls out of nowhere. And it's difficult to process it, especially when you're trying to lead your team or be a part of your team, because you want to make sure that everyone is on the same page. So I want to share some of the things that have helped me when I felt stuck. And all those things could be different for everyone. So when I feel stuck, I try to walk away, literally get up from the desk and walk away, go outside, take a breath of fresh air. For some people, it could be going on a run, going for a walk. It's those breathing exercises that I find really help me ground and kind of get me back into the flowing and be creative. And I'm not talking about just breathing, taking one deep breath in and one deep breath out, because that's not going to do much. But property management is such a high demand and high paced industry that for me, I'm talking about the box breathing, is when you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, you breathe it out for 4 seconds, and then you hold it again before you breathe in for 4 seconds. So it really helps to clear your mind and allowing those creative thoughts to come back into your mind. What I also like to do is, for those who know me, I love to dance. So even though I've been back at the office since June 1st, my poor neighbors in the office probably sometimes hear the music blasting, because I get up and I just start dancing. Like, that's literally what I do. Sometimes I even dance when I go to the bathroom, because it helps me clear my mind. But once again, for everyone, it's different. It could be gaming. It could be listening to some relaxing music. You can go on YouTube and just Google focus music or meditation music or anything, just to kind of help you come down, distract yourself from everything that's happening out in the world. And then you truly can be productive without any distractions that are happening. Change is something that is amazing, and a lot of successful people are those who have adopted to change. Use change to your advantage. Use it as a clean slate to start fresh. Go outside of your comfort zone and experiment. It's okay to make mistakes because we only learn from them, right? And we move forward. So all those things, we all are in the same boat. Don't forget, everyone is adapting to new things. Another thing that kind of helped me is a new so for those that know that I like dancing, I have been following, I don't know if you're familiar with Julianne Hough. She's a dancer and an actress, and she has come up with an expanded fitness called Kinergy. I will post in the chat group soon, and once I'm done talking, it's KINRGY.com. It's an expanded fitness and movement experience that is inspired by 4 elements, which is fire, water, air, and earth. And it kind of makes you go through the different elements and really release any kind of tension that you might have and experiencing, and go through. And then you can kind of start anew. I have to tell you that honestly, when I did it for the first time, I cried like a baby because it just felt so good, because it takes you out of today's world and kind of puts you into somewhere else, I guess. At least it did it for me. So I would encourage everyone to do that. And I also encourage you, and for those who have ever taken any of my classes, I always say that look at things through children's eyes or glasses, or however you want to call it. As we grow up and we get older, we tend to analyze and overanalyze things as adults. That's just something that we do. And we overthink things so much that we, once again, get stuck, or we just don't know if this is the right way to proceed. If you think of a child, to child, everything is a playground. No matter what situation they are in, no matter what environment they're in, they treat it as a playground. So I invite you and challenge you to think of the next change that you're going to encounter, the next challenge you're going to encounter, or any just situation that you might be in. Go ahead and look at it through children's vision glasses, however you want to call it, and see if it might be easier for you to deal with it or approach it, because once again, kids think outside the box. They don't overanalyze, they just go with the flow, and it's amazing. So what I want to leave you with is a couple of challenges, is to turn everything that you have in your life as a negativity into positive. If you're having a hard time, feel free to reach out to me. I'll also post my email address. Some people find it a little annoying, but I do tend to find positive in everything that comes to mind, or challenges. So feel free to email me if you're struggling. I'll help you with that. And also something with the change. If you were to look back about a year from now, what imprint or how did you overcome change? What did you leave behind? How have you contributed with the changes that are going on to yourself personally, to your team and your company at work, maybe with your friends and family, and in the world? What would you have to, how would you relay, and what would you be able to answer to yourself a year from now? How have you moved on with change? So I'll stop talking now. I also don't know how to stop sometimes.
Very beautiful, Ala. Thank you
Wonderful.
so much. Yes, that was very, very beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Are there any questions for Ala right now at this point? And just as a quick tidbit, Sarah was able to put in the link that Ala just mentioned in the chat. So if you're interested to looking into that a little further about the elements that Ala was just talking about, they are in the chat room for anyone that wants to look further into that. Are there any other questions for Ala at this
The only
moment?
thing about the website, I'm not sure that yet it's HTTPS. The S might not be there. I'm not sure, but Sarah, if you copied and pasted directly, then it could be. I'm not sure.
Yeah, she's giving us the thumbs up.
Thank you. And I'll post my email too. So if anybody wants to reach out directly and chat with me, I'll be more than happy to talk.
Before we take questions for you, I want to shout out two people. Hillary Bradley, she actually had some great suggestions that she put in the chat. She is the owner of the Chocolate Chick. Take a walk 2 times at least during the day, and you will be more productive when you're reset. That was her tip. And then I also want to read Tika Heyman. She says she read Who Moved My Cheese. It's a great book, an easy, short read. With so many changes we are faced with currently, it is great to assist with change management and to focus on the positives, which can be so difficult during these times. And then for those of you all who are interested, Ala just put her email in the main chat, so you can copy and paste that as well. Sarah also earlier did put the Amazon link to purchase Who Moved My Cheese. So if you are interested in that, that is also in the chat group. Thank you to Sarah for all of those wonderful things. Are there any questions for Ala before we move on to our next panelist? That was just great. I don't even know. Yeah, very, very great. Questions? Okay. Well, without further ado, Mike, take the stage.
Hey, everyone. So for me, it's not so much about book quotes, but I think, during the pandemic, one of the things I kind of thought about is, I'm an introvert. This isn't going to affect me, as much as it might be all the outgoing people that I know are on this call. And then I found out very quickly that that's simply not the case. That, the teams that we've built, I'm around a lot of people. I know others, maybe a smaller group, a larger group, but you find out very quickly how much you miss that. And so the key for me all these months has been trying to figure out ways to get in front of people, to interact and to have the bonds, the friend bonds that you form, and continue to try to figure out how better to do that. So that's something I learned very quickly over this, is that, having a month in, having 4 or 5 people out, 25 feet away in a yard doing that, and then you evolve over that. And then I think on the family side, the same type of thing where, at least in my family, we don't watch TV anymore. It's become an ugly place to watch the daily news. So, you can read about it for 10 minutes, but all of a sudden you're hiking more, you're taking walks, you're doing all the things with family that instead of a 16-year-old that I have at home up in her room watching, on her phone and or Netflix and us downstairs doing the same, the 3 of us now spend a lot more time. So I think the advice I would give is take the bad that has occurred with this pandemic and find the good in that. And that is, how has this helped you as personally to change the way that you do things and maybe do it better? Watch TV less, read more, do what the things that you enjoy most, and take that when this hopefully passes sooner than later. Because going right back to watching TV 8 hours a night, when you get home from work, is that really what you want to do? If that's what you love, then great. But what other things out there, did you miss and you've kind of forgotten you've missed and you started picking back up? That's, something I think that you should take a look at. And I think a little inspiration, our company is very philanthropic. And, one of the things that we did pretty early on in the pandemic is a number of people went to Children's Hospital and donated platelets and gave blood. And the look on people's faces, we're obviously sequestered in our homes, but you think about the people, especially in the beginning, that had to be out and doing those things, and the people that are in the hospital that can't not be in the hospital. The smiles that were put on the faces, showing that you're taking time out of your day and doing things for other people, I think goes so far. And so I would also think about what people are not as able to maybe sit in their basement with. John, I have my hat on all the time. You shower at least. That's good. But I think, there are other people that may not have the same capabilities or the same, and they have to be doing other things. Think about them. Think about what could be done with either time, with donation, anything to help get them by a little bit faster and through all this. So, you know, that's just kind of us, you know, think about ways to keep the team together. You have new people that may be starting that you don't get to see as often. You get in front of them, make sure the team through all of this, because it's not the same where you could go out all the time. There's in our company, there's new people every day. How do you make sure the culture and what you want to be continues? And obviously having good people working with you is the way to do that. But try to get out, try to be more sociable, try to not to be the introvert that I am, and go out and say hi to everybody.
Thank you, Mike. We appreciate you sharing with us this morning. And before we take questions for Mike, want to go back and recognize some things in the chat room. To Alla's previous point, she mentioned box breathing. Sarah has also provided an article on that. If you are looking for new breathing techniques, that link is in the chat group. I also received a private message from Kristen, and she wanted to share that she's been sending out inspirational quotes and messages company-wide on a weekly basis with a corresponding motivational picture. And she said the feedback that she receives from her team is her inspiration on a weekly basis. So if there's something, to Mike's point, to stay connected with your team, or do something different in your home or with your family, those can be inspirational for us individually. I did get a question, an anonymous question. This person wanted to remain anonymous, but one of the things that they wanted to ask Mike was, how do you overcome working remotely and your hours are being extended? So I assume what they're saying is that they're working more now that they're working from home than they would in the office. So they feel like their time management is off, and they even find themselves, this person goes in to say, sometimes picking up things on Saturdays and Sundays. So whereas they would have particularly, had that free time, they don't have that anymore.
Yeah, I think, John summed it up probably best. And that is, for me, I don't have a long commute personally myself, but others do. And so that 45 minutes to and from, now all of a sudden you're just sitting at a computer for 45 minutes longer to and from. I think it's very important that, for my team, I recognize that, it's not a 9-to-5 job. Some people work better in the morning, some people work better in the evening, and it's really revolving your day around what's best for you. And hopefully you've got people that are around you that allow that and understand that. I think it's very important to disconnect for a bit. I think it's very important to find those things that you like to do, be it walk, be it read, be it whatever it is. You have to take those hours out of the day, because if you don't, you're just going to get sucked into this. I mean, I think it's important to take the laptop and just shut it down and walk away at a certain point of the day, because if you keep it open, you keep checking your phone, you're just going to be inclined to go back and do it again. So for me, I'm a little bit different, but I think I have people that I work in the Middle East, so I'm up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then I have my team that's 6 o'clock at night. But for a normal job, I think it's making sure that you realize, you don't need to be working that 45 minutes that you'd be driving, because that's usually for some people chance to listen to the radio, listen to a podcast, do those things, and now you've taken that away. So you have to build that back into your day.
Excellent, thank you. So the questions are rolling in, Mike. Thanks for this reminder. Finding ways to make the bond between each other makes the big difference. What have you done as a company to bring each department together?
So for us, what we've had, we've done, the virtual bingos, we've done virtual art classes. That was in the beginning. Now we're doing more pockets of groups in outdoor settings. So a winery, a park, those types of things. I think it's very important to get onto sites and to being around other people. But the virtual events have been very popular. I know a lot of people have been doing those. And now that, the outdoor doesn't seem as if you're doing it correctly, is not as dangerous as we thought it might have been 5 months ago. Having smaller groups of people outdoors, especially during this time of year when it's nice. I think the key is how do you do it when it gets cold and in the winter and you only have 8 hours of sunlight during the day. I think that's really what I think people need to be thinking about, is what can you be doing indoors that's similar to the outdoor, that gives you enough space and comfort for people who are very concerned about, you know, being indoors, because everybody's different, right? That'll be interesting to see. I think it's going to be very important people still find those things that they like to do outdoors and try to incorporate that, because if you're stuck inside all day, you're just going to work and you're just going to go crazy. And I think that's the key, that balance that you're going to need. And for your family, if you have them as well.
Thank you. And that question was from Kelly. Thank you, Kelly. Steve Shapiro from Commercial Image says that Mike's right. He's been donating plasma and platelets. So I guess he's just agreeing that that's something that he's been doing to give back, has been donating, as well as shout out to our community service committee. They also had done a blood drive initiative with PMA as well. So we had multiple members who did that. So thank you for mentioning that, Steve. Nikki says, our company has weekly calls to stay connected, and we also stay connected via our project management tool, which helps us with collaboration. Thank you, Nikki. Deb says, set healthy boundaries. Set healthy boundaries and stick with it. Thanks, Deb. Evan says, we haven't lived through bitter cold and dark at 4:30. How do we prevent emotional crashes? And I guess I'll answer because that's a loaded question. I'll ask I don't want to just put that pressure on you, Mike, but if anyone, any of one of our panelists would like to answer that, or if all of you have a little tidbit that you would like to share with that, because I think that that's one of the things that people really wanted to know about. Even in our surveys, they're talking about how to cope, how to not be emotional. Those are some of the hot points that were coming up. So if whoever doesn't mind, kind of touching on that.
Oh, I know what I plan on. What I plan on doing is layering up. I'm gonna, you know, put on an extra coat, put on and get outside and do what we need to do to still have that, you know, air, the fresh air. The 5 o'clock thing, you know, that's going to be tough. That's going to be harder to deal with, I think. You know, I saw somebody say, you know, heaters. I think that restaurants are going to, you know, and I know that some of the shopping centers that we manage, you know, and, you know, it's going to be completely different. There's going to be tents with heaters and ways to keep outside. And I think maybe go out and have a dinner somewhere, you know, do anything you can do on those days. Most days it's not impossible to be outside, you know, it's only when those rain, sleet, wind days, I think. So figure out a way to get outdoors.
I would also like to add that this is the perfect time to get creative and think outside the box to come up with those ideas, maybe picking up trying out a new hobby and seeing what sticks. And then maybe coming out with a new trend. Just go out there and, you know, be heard in whatever it is that you want to do. Find others that want to do it with you, whether it's virtual or around the fire. I know that not everyone has an opportunity to have a fire outside in the backyard because not everyone, you know, has a house, but just finding other ways to get together in the park on a, you know, near a playground, still continue practicing safe distancing if needed, and just think outside the box, challenge yourself, find something that sticks and you like and makes you smile.
I think Sarah makes a good point. Maybe your hours change. Maybe you work from 5 to 7 or 5 to 8 p.m. and you take off from 12 to 2 at the nicest part of the day. I think that's something you should.
Yeah, you took that away from me, Mike. I was going to say, just switch it around. I mean, and that's the change that they talk about. The mice just kept running around. If you have the flexibility of doing your stuff, why don't you just do it at night? That time you're fearing you're going to crash, use that as your walk time, wake up at 7 when the sun is out and go spend the whole day outside or something like that. And I think those questions are actually really important because those are the cheeses the book talks about, you know, because that's another cheese that's being moved that we do not know how to deal with and have to find a way. I mean, maybe even paint your house with some blue and some sun and skies just so that when you're sitting in there, you don't feel enclosed. Because, you know, the yearning of that is what actually makes us not be able to move along. Because I still don't want to be stuck at 4:30 when it's dark at 4:30. But guess what? The reality is I will be. And I just need to figure out how to deal with it. And to another point you made, Mike, about teams, and someone asked a question about teams. I read somewhere, or actually I was in a leadership panel, and someone talked about every single thing you do at your company should be geared towards dealing with a situation like this one. So if your team was tight to begin with, they're tight now. They're still tight. And they figure out a way to get together and do their thing out there. If you had an issue, if you had a problem at an organization that had not gotten taken care of, now it's out in the open, it's been blown up. It's the same way with our personal stuff. You kind of prepare yourself and you gird yourself and you build whatever you need to build so that when this happens, you're not running on empty. And I'm gonna mute again.
Thanks, John. Anyone else have anything to share on that topic of how to handle emotional or how to prevent emotional crashes?
I also wanted to say to try to have a support group. I think because we're kind of isolated from each other, even though I come to the office, I kind of stay in my office and I don't really, we interact even though we're in the same office, we interact through Zoom. We don't really have meetings or go to conference rooms anymore. But find a support group, whether it's your friends, your family, make really meaningful, try to make connections. And connect with people even though you can, because sometimes being alone is, it is isolating and it does make you go crazy at times. One makes you want to climb the wall. John, I love painting the house. I'm not sure how that's if everyone else in the house is gonna appreciate that, but I'm all for challenge in convincing that we should.
I tell you what,
They'll get over it.
Something brand new that I'm doing in the pandemic is I'm having mimosas and budgets. I came out.
Yes.
I came out to one of my team's house. We're doing budgets, in a room here, and I just got handed a mimosa. So I've never done this. I'm pretty sure they're happy because I'm going to approve them all very quickly, and we're going to.
Right.
I have a clock somewhere.
We were talking about that at the beginning of the meeting, and this guys were suggesting things that go with coffee very well, but that's a lot better. So mimosa sounds very good.
Or frangelica.
Okay, so we have several things rolling in the chat. Sarah did provide, thank you, Sarah. She provided the link for our community service committee, our blood drive initiative that I did mention earlier. So if you all are interested in donating and signing up for a slot, the link is there in the chat group. Deb has another great idea. She says she bought a big canopy tent and heater to be able to see friends and family outdoors. Nikki says, good question, Evan. Sad on top of isolation is real, which I believe she's talking about the, like when the temperature changes and how people are feeling when it starts getting cold. Robin says, thanks, Deb, love that idea. Tika says, can you sit around a fire pit with a blanket, get some lanterns, be safe with firewood? So she's just saying, just be careful, but get around the fire pit. And what John mentioned, Sarah says, if you can sit outside for a bit during the workday to get some fresh air and sun, consider making a standing meeting with yourself for a midday walk. And then Nikki says, coffee and brandy, I guess those are her twins in the morning. And Michelle says she's totally jealous that she wants coffee and brandy. So Nikki and Michelle, you guys may have to join and swap cups. Okay, so thank you all. That was a really, really great time. Now, without further ado, we want to run into our last panelist, our president, our very own president, Tony Harris.
Good morning, everyone. I don't know whose idea it was for me to follow Mike, but you couldn't have two more opposite individuals. While Mike is such an introvert and he thought that it would be great for him, like, woo, lockdown, great. I'm not forced to talk to anyone. For me, this was completely out of my comfort zone. I am a huge extrovert, and I'm actually, for those of you I haven't said good morning to, I'll just give you my little tagline. I'm broadcasting live from the Tony Harris studios this morning. So I do things like that to make myself feel better about being alone, because I actually thrive off of energy, and it's people energy. And for me, if I can leave you with this inspiration today, I had to, I kind of went into overdrive, and I'm an overthinker. So when Deshauna reached out, I was like, well, what in the world could I possibly share? This sucks. Ever since, we've all been on house arrest, I'm going, what in the world am I going to do with myself? I can't see anybody. I can't hug anybody. I can't touch. And that's who I am. So I had to stop, take a step back, and I came up. There's this quote that I came across some years ago, and it was from a book. And I'd like to share that with you. But a little bit of what I'm talking about is I've pretty much given it a title, and it's called Critical Thinking with a COVID Brain. Critical Thinking with a COVID Brain, okay? The quote is this: thinking is choosing thoughts. It is working. It's measuring. It's planning. It's creating a reality instead of directly experiencing what's actually happening in the moment. And I've actually been living by this for the last 7 months. Thinking is choosing your thoughts. It's all about working. It's all about measuring. It's about planning. It's about creating a reality instead of you just experiencing what's actually happening in the moment. Now, just opposite of Mike, Mike would be perfectly happy sitting there planning, doing budgets, drinking mimosas. With me, I'm like, let's just do it. Let's get out. Let's have some fun. I'm ready to go. And being under house arrest, I like to refer to it as house arrest. I'm like, well, I didn't do anything. Why am I arrested? Listen, I'm the innocent one here, right? All right. So we were all in the same boat, going in the same direction. And one of the things that I had to quickly remember is that I had to remember who I was. I had to learn a different reality because my experiences weren't feeling very good. They lacked quality, they lacked value, and they lacked fun, which is what I like to put into everything that I do. So I quickly had to learn the art of being able to pivot, of being able to adjust. And like most of you, the whole, okay, I got to telework. It doesn't look good going from upstairs to downstairs, from this level to that level. The only places I could go is the grocery store and Home Depot. Enough. I wanted to create my own experiences. So the way that I did that in my personal life was very parallel to what I did at work. For me, for my team, I actually did things virtually like most of you. I came up with a book club, and there's this book I just shared with Sarah before we began, and it was called People Can't Drive You Crazy If You Don't Give Them the Keys. It is a must read. This book actually taught me the art of taking the power away from people who was absolutely driving me bananas. Whether it is the lady and the cashier who didn't smile at me, and I'm a big believer in, obviously engagement and customer service, or whether it was, the person being rude over here, or whether it was that coworker that just wouldn't get right. I have a nickname for them. It's called Can't Get Right. Okay. So whether it was that person or the next person, I had to realize quickly that I was in control, that I needed to take the keys away. And just because I'm an introvert does not mean that everyone around me is going to be that way. And I quickly had to remember who I was, what's my purpose. And I had to really, really dig my heels in. So what I did from my team is that every other Friday, I created this thing called Fantastic Friday. And for those of you who know me, you know that teaching is a passion of mine. I love being able to pay forward information. If I learn it, I'm going to give it to you. I love giving it away, anything that I learn. So I came up with Fantastic Fridays. And Fantastic Fridays is set up where any member of my team, whether it be a service personnel, whether it be a leasing specialist, assistant manager, it doesn't matter who you are, you can take part in this. There's one week where I'm teaching something technical, and then there is one week where I'm teaching a soft skill. Came up with a session called Failing Forward, the art of failing forward. And a lot of times I'm looking at the content. Any content that I'm developing for a class, I live it, right? So everything that I teach, I walk. I'm a big believer that you can't be an excellent teacher unless you're a great student. So with Fantastic Fridays, the content was very paramount for me. While Mike is out there coming up with tents and ways to get out of the house, I had to sit down somewhere because I was like, my girls were looking at me like, you're going to give us COVID, right? Because you're going to sit still. stay in the house, sit down. I'm like, no, we can do this, we can do that. So I had to learn to become that introvert. And it's a challenge for me, but one thing I quickly realized a long time ago is that, and as a matter of fact, I learned this from John. John hired me many years ago at Bizzuto, and I worked under his leadership. He's a regional, and there were a lot of things I wasn't comfortable with. And I think that John recognized that. And the quicker I got over it, that's when I started noticing success. Because success really does not begin until it's at the end of your comfort zone. I had to get out of my comfort zone. So I applaud John for those lessons today. But what I will leave you all with is I encourage you. We're going to be locked down again. For me, there's no question about that. We are going to be in a house at 4:30. It is going to be dark, right? But remember who you are. We all had to scramble. No one could have predicted this. No one could have predicted this. No one knew that we would all have ankle bracelets on and couldn't go as far as Home Depot and a grocery store. Okay? We couldn't have imagined. But what we were all doing at the same exact time is we were coming up with ways to get out of it. Someone mentioned how to avoid the emotional crash. For those of you who have known me for years, you know that I wear a lot of dark colors. I used to wear it because I was fat. I lost about 32 pounds now, so I'm living in my glory over here. So what I had to do is I had to learn how to wear bright colors in the house while I was just at home doing nothing. And that was truly like not me, because they had to take me out of a mood, turning the TV off. I had to think with a COVID brain. I had to choose my thoughts, create my own reality, and I had to experience something different instead of looking at what was happening in the moment. I'm learning, Mike, you will be so proud of me. I'm learning to become an introvert. It's not going very well. I'm in Boston, I'm alone, I'm away from my family. I'm hating going to the grocery store if I could find one around here, but I don't know how to cook for one. I haven't learned that yet. So, but these are things that have caused my brain to kind of be just going in a different direction, if you will. Just remember who you are. Get back to that. Do not allow the pandemic to change you. We will all get through it because we're all in it together. And that's it.
Wow. Thank you, Tony, so much. We appreciate you sharing that. We have several comments in the chat group, and then I will ask for live questions. We have, for the book reference, Sarah actually placed that link in the chat group if you all are interested in purchasing that. People Can't Drive You Crazy Unless If You Give Them the Keys, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the book. The link is in the chat group. Amanda says, hey, Amanda, our membership leader. Tony, that's why I always take your classes that are offered. You are relatable and honest and teach based on real life. So helpful and engaging.
Thank you, Amanda.
Tika says, Tony is a phenomenal leader. Nikki says, yes, Tony. I think that was to the weight loss.
It feels wonderful.
I believe your name is Nija. Please forgive me if that's incorrect, but I believe it's Nija. She said, Tony, I need this. Thank you. I have missed your voice since WP.
Oh, I miss you too.
Michelle says, well said, Tony. Robin Davis says, excellent sharing. Sarah says, at the end, can we turn off on our cameras on and smile so I can take a screenshot and share on social? It would be like we're all together at PMA event. And then, thanks, Sarah. And then Kristen says, I just want to know how Tony lost 30 pounds, LOL. But seriously, how did she?
Let's just say I developed a love for working out. I'm actually in a cycle club now. And Autumn, oh, there's Autumn. Autumn's my regional ops specialist, and she joined me in a couple of weight loss challenges. So, and you know, that COVID-15 didn't hit me, I'm telling you. It hit in the right places though. Oh, you'll see. But yeah, I just fell in love with outside, and you know, I've always been in love with outside, but I developed a love of accountability for my health. And I was just very energized to work out, and I wasn't like that before. I ride bikes, I'm walking, and now I'm into weightlifting. I've always been into weightlifting. So for those of you who follow me on Facebook, you probably saw some of my workout videos where I'm bench pressing. I'm bench pressing 50 now. So it's yeah, it's just been fun. It's doing anything because I just want to be around people. So if I see somebody walking by, I'll stop and make a friend. Just to get out of the house. So that's how.
Sharon says, today is amazing for me. Alla was my first mentor, and Tony is the mentor that I just hijacked during my arm training.
He did.
Thank you both. Thank both of you ladies for all that you have poured into me.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Sharon.
My pleasure.
And then at this time, are there any questions for Tony specifically, or if you have any questions for any of the panelists, you may unmute at this time and ask them live before we do our photo and all that good stuff. Any remaining questions?
Shauna, if I can, I would love to just share, just, thanking the panelists for what they've shared. It was awesome. Great tips. We really need it. And I like Alla and Tony and Mike and John shared. I a lot of times start my day with a positive podcast. I'm an eternal optimist, so I'd like to try to see a good in everything. And I realized, even listening to this podcast, that we have to change our default setting. Our default setting was pre-COVID. So we need a new default setting during this time. And I said I was going to start really working on my default. And also on IG, it was shared about self-care not being, but I wrote it down, not being, self-care is a priority, and it's not a luxury, it's a priority. So we do have to, and I bought a bike. So I've gotten into cycling and it's going to great trails and hiking. And I never did that before, you guys. So I'm trying to change my default and trying to make self-care, putting that first and continue with positive thoughts and starting my day with those positive podcasts. They've been extremely helpful.
Excellent. Alltrails.com if you're a trail. If you love walking, download it on your phone, alltrails.com.
Awesome.
Gives you the best trails wherever you are.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
Deb says, I need Tony as my neighbor. Great inspiration.
No, we'd be drinking all day.
Tony, you can be my neighbor then.
Right.
I'm good with that as well.
What's wrong with that, Tony?
Really well.
Hey, it's working for me so far. I haven't had to go to a meeting. So as long as nobody's knocking on the door telling me, hey, you need a meeting? It's all good.
There's been a lot of talk about, maybe picking up new habits, whether they're fitness, mental health, whatever the case may be. One thing to note, we often talk about resolutions at the beginning of the year, sometimes like Labor Day, oh, it's a new season, let's do a new resolution. If you need some inspiration to pick up a new habit, on Monday, there will only be 75 days left of the year. So the last 75 days. So why not just start a new habit now to enter, the strongest you've ever been, take advantage of those 75 days.
It's a wonderful idea. I love it.
Sarah, I love it.
I love that.
I joined a fitness challenge. That's just that. The last 75, we're going to go into the new year feeling good, not like feeling sad. Like we have to.
And the other thing about that, even when you make goals and you're trying to change your resolutions or shift your paradigm, remember we have been pre-COVID for generations, right? Yeah. Generations and generations. Yeah. You're not going to change in 7 months. You're not going to change in a year. Mm-hmm. So, but if you keep aspiring to change, just remember aspiration, aspire, and don't beat yourself up if you're not running 3 miles by next week.
Exactly.
You have a lot of time. Trust me, you will have a lot of time to run those 3 miles. So part of that, someone mentioned self-care. Part of self-care is understanding that this really nothing to do with you, and your reaction to it should be measured. It doesn't have to be right away.
Right.
And that way you'll be able to navigate and stop feeling frustrated because things are not changing like we're used to them changing. Because when we go to work, there are new things every day that we got used to, new challenges, new clients, all that is gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you just calmly understand and just start changing yourself, someone say default, changing the attitude and the mindset that, again, you've done everything you can and you're going to keep wanting to do everything you can so that you don't feel like you're missing out on anything, because you really are not.
And you know what's wrong? You know what all of our problem is? Every last person on this call, you know what's wrong with us? Why we were so angry about the pandemic? Because we didn't have control.
Absolutely.
We didn't have control. We didn't have a say of when you could go to the beach or when you could fly or vacation. And we were so used to saying, I'm going. This is why our anti-maskers, so to speak, if I could give it a name, are having such a problem with complying, right? So our issue is that we just lost control. My daughter said it best, but did you die? No. She said, Mom, you're just angry because you do not have control over what's happening. You can't just do what you want to do. Whether it's just go to the mall and walk around and not buy one thing, I'm in control. Because I couldn't do that, I'm angry. So now I'm going to sit on the couch and eat a pan of ice cream or something. And now I'm fat again, but yeah. But you have to be willing to say, okay, this is beyond me. And as John stated, I mean, all of you stated so very well, we got to reinvent ourselves. And I love Robin's suggestion about the default button. I love that. So great analogy.
Deb says, I need Tony as, she says, to repeat the app. The app is alltrails.com. Thank you, Tika, for putting that in there. Sarah says, when it comes to picking up new habits or routines, Atomic Habits and The 4 Tendencies are great reads if anyone is looking for changing your habits. Are there any other comments? This has been so inspirational and so great. Does anyone else have anything else that they would like to share or ask before we end our session?
I would like to see if anyone would be willing when they go out to Home Depot or grocery store, because it seems to be the common stores these days, not just for all of us. I know they're making some good money though. You're going out and it's once again a new reality. Everyone is wearing a mask and it's kind of sad because you can't really see anybody really, and you don't know if they're smiling and they're not smiling. And you never know what path people are walking. You never know if they just had a really horrible day or whatever it might be. Just because we can't physically smile or we're smiling, but it can't be seen because we're wearing a mask. Wave at people. I mean, they're strangers, but and some of them might not appreciate it, but I think there are going to be some that will. So I encourage you to try to do that along with the other challenges that I have offered up. Try to do that as well, because I do that when I go to the store. My daughter says I'm crazy. She, for years now, wants to do nothing with me when we're together in public because it's my job to embarrass her. But try to do that. I think it could go a really long way for someone, because once again, you don't know where they're coming from. So try to spread some of the love that we share all together here as a group. Try to spread it with strangers as well.
Thank you, Ala. Kelly says, thanks to everyone. This has really been a helpful hour with great resources shared. And then Sharon says, I try to make eye contact and speak to everyone that I make eye contact with. These are all great resources. We so appreciate your time. And before we all get off, if you don't mind, to Sarah's request, if everyone wouldn't mind turning on your cameras and putting up your bright, smiling faces so we can do a quick photo. We almost got everyone. That's if you feel comfortable, no pressure.
Are we doing serious or goofy first?
We want to smile. Smile and look happy. You could do goofy if you want, whatever. Linda says, great job, panelists and everyone who shared. This has been very uplifting. So Sarah, I don't know if you want to,
All right, ready? I think I have to capture it in two shots. So I didn't want to get anybody with their RBF on, Tony, you know, because that happens.
Sharon, Linda, Kristen, and Jamal, will you all like to turn on your camera?
Sharon is connected twice for audio purposes.
Oh, okay, understood. Linda, you want us to see you? Kristen, Jamal?
All right, everybody who's on, say cheese.
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 And then, hold on 1 second, let me see. All right, one more cheese. Say, who moved John's cheese?
Who moves John's cheese?
All right, awesome. Thanks, guys.
Well, this has been truly inspirational. We so appreciate and value each and every person's time. We thank you all for all the inspiration. Thank you to our panelists, our board. We really appreciate you all taking your time out from your homes in Boston and all that good stuff. Kristen says, so fun. Thank you all. This has been great. And again, we will continue this conversation through our social media. So if you are interested, my email address is in our group chat. If you weren't able to share your inspirational quote, book, or experience, you can send that to me directly and we will shout you out on our social media pages. Thank you all. I hope you all have a fantastic Thursday and we look forward to seeing you at part 3.
Thanks, everyone. Good job, Deshauna.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See
Thanks,
everybody.
Deshauna.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Steve, I want to be where you are, man.
Ocean City.